Well, hello there, guys. It's the Red Shadow again, and I'm back with my December pickups video. Took a little bit longer than I wanted to, but here we be. This should be pretty quick and easy and short because I don't have a whole lot to show. I wanted to point out my Icons light that I finally hooked up. This thing is not new. I've had it for a couple of years. It's been out of the box and sitting on a shelf like a little display item for a while, but I hadn't actually hooked it up until recently. And honestly, it's just being plugged into my PS4 with the cord I use to charge my controller. So whenever I have to charge a controller, I have to shut it off. I don't have enough hookups in my house, outlets and plugins for all the things that I have bought to display like this, but for the near future at least, maybe it'll show up in some videos like this. Alright, so anyway, like I said, we're going to try to do this relatively quick, and I've got a stack of games, about 9 or 10 games. I've got one music CD and one Blu-ray. So let's go ahead and jump into the CD. This is, I don't know what's going to be better, this side or that side. This is a Swedish. Gosh, I had looked at it and now I don't remember if she's Swedish or Norwegian. But anyway, Sigrid is her name. She's a pop singer. I stumbled across a couple of her songs a few years back, and I just finally decided to pick up her CD. She has two. This one was pretty cheap. The other one that's out of hers is a little bit more expensive. I've got to turn that off so that the reflection doesn't come through on there. So anyway, the CD's called Sucker Punch. Like I said, I got it pretty cheap. I'm collecting CDs, but I find myself once again kind of being like, why am I still buying CDs? Not because I don't want to, but right now I don't really have anything in my house or my vehicle to play CDs in. So the CDs that I do own are sort of laying dormant, collecting dust. But I'll probably still pick up any that I see of artists that I like. Alright, next up is my one Blu-ray purchase for December. This is Clerks 3. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. Clerks, the original, was the first movie of his I ever watched. Clerks 2 I really enjoyed. That came, a decade or more after the original, and then here this one comes even further after. Sadly, I haven't watched this one yet. I wanted to sit down and do a Clerks marathon one day and watch all three back to back. So that's my plan for sometime in the near future. But had to pick up that one. There were several other movies I wanted to get. I had hoped that I would be able to pick up some of them during Black Friday sales, and it just didn't happen. Excuse me. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of summer to holiday movies that released in that time frame that I wanted to pick up, like Top Gun Maverick, and so there's a whole bunch of them. So hopefully those will get cheaper and I'll be able to pick them up soon. Alright, now we're going to jump into the games. I'm going to try to go from the cheapest and kind of middling games up to the coolest thing that I got this past month, and I'll have a little bit more to say about that one when we get to it. But the first thing I got to show off here is YouTuber's Life 2. I've been familiar with YouTuber's Life 1 and 2 for a while. They're basically just, like a Sims game, except it's about being a YouTuber, doing videos, dropping viral content, etc., etc., etc. It's just a cheapo little game that I thought I would pick up, and I ordered it on sale from GameStop, and they sent me it was supposed to be new. It was a tale as old as time. It was supposed to be new, and I got sent in a case that's got like there's some damage there and there's some damage up here, and it was opened. It wasn't new. So that was disappointing, and I bought a second game with that. This game here, Kiwi, which is like a throwback to sort of like N64 era platformers, rare games, Conkers and Banjo-Kazooies and whatnot. I heard this one talked about a few months back, looked into it, thought it was interesting. It was also really cheap on GameStop. It was also supposed to be a new copy. This one, it was opened. This one had a pretty shoddy looking case to it as well. But I had some games that I picked up last year or the year before. In fact, one of them is right here. This is the Rocket Arena Mystic Edition. These got clearance to like, I don't know, $1 at the store that I work at. So I bought like 4 or 5 of them. I put one of them sealed on my shelf. The other ones I opened up and used them as replacement cases. So I replaced the case for Kiwi with the last one of the Rocket Arenas that I had left over. Now, sadly, I'm out of that game. So if I get any more things like this, I don't have a ready replacement. But it's always a good idea to keep an eye out for cheap sports games at stores like Walmart and Target and Best Buy. Because if they're brand new and unopened and they're not charging much, you can pick them up. And then you can, you transfer your games that come in like those into a nicer case. Alright, next game we have here is called Away, the Survival Series. Saw this in a Facebook group, a series of posts that one of the guys in this group was doing, where every day we went from A to Z through the alphabet, and everybody was to show a game in their collection under that letter that they either were particularly fond of or extremely glad that they have in their collection. And right off the bat, on the very first day, I saw somebody post this one. And I've seen this game before. It was one of those, it's like on a deep mental backlog list of games to buy. But that brought it back up to the forefront. And anytime something like that happens, I will look on eBay. I'll see what the prices look like. This was relatively cheap, so I picked it up. It's basically just an animal survival game where you play as an animal character and you have to fend off other, predatory animals. Graphics look really, really interesting. It goes for, at least from what I can see on here, a somewhat realistic graphic style. And I don't know, it just looks like an interesting type of game. Maybe not a whole lot of particular narrative or story to it, but it could be good for, chilling out for a little while. Alright, up next is a game that I saw it when it came out. I saw it getting coverage like on IGN and on YouTube, and I thought, that looks kind of interesting, but I don't know if the gameplay style is for me, and so I let it go. And then it would pop up every so often. I'd be like, should I have gotten this game? Maybe I'll just pass on again for a while. And then all of a sudden it was like $15 on Walmart.com. So I picked it up. It is The Ascent. This is an isometric, like it says solo and co-op action RPG. It has that Diablo look to it, up and angled. And that's part of the reason why I didn't really want to get into it. To watch your characters from so far up, games like The Witcher and Red Dead and GTA, where it's like third person, and you're kind of behind or over the shoulder of your character. That style of game is really what I like for immersion and storytelling and really feeling like you're in the world. Something like this makes me feel like I'm sort of staring at a board game, like a D&D game. It doesn't really feel quite the same and as immersive for me, but at a cheap price, this was the kind of thing where I thought I would give it a shot. Cyberpunk aesthetic and all that. I do enjoy stuff like that, although I would probably rather play Cyberpunk 2077 than a game like this. We'll give it a shot at a cheap price. Alright, so we've got the first of, if I remember right, the first of 2 things that came in from Limited Run Games. The very first thing here is a game called American Hero. This was cool. This is a full motion video point and click style game, of which some of my favorite games of all time are some old 90s style of these. I recently played a game called The Bunker, and that was a whole lot of fun. Really was a great tribute, paid homage to the older style games like the Mist and Rivens and Phantasmagorias, and my personal favorite of all those games from back then, the X-Files game. But the newer ones are sometimes kind of hit or miss as to how well they tell their stories and how the games play out. Sometimes they feel a little bit more like a multiple choice style thing, as opposed to find the right thing in the environment, click on it, interact with it. Some not necessarily quick time events, but timed events where you have to make a decision before a certain amount of time, where you kind of get like an instant game over. Some of the newer games don't really do it like that. The Bunker was very, very well done in that regard. And I'm going to be playing several more of those newer point-and-click style FMV games in the near future. But what caught my eye on American Hero is that this was actually a game from the 90s. I'll read a little bit on the back of this here. The most outrageous FMV game never released. A restoration and remaster of a game lost to time for over 25 years. American Hero is an outrageous and unforgettable FMV game that lets you play as Jack, the star in an over-the-top 90s Hollywood action movie. So this is a game from that time period that didn't get put out for whatever reason or another. I don't remember the story off the top of my head now. But then it got saved, and this is something that I absolutely love. This is yet another game on my shelf that is an old game lost to time that was brought back onto more modern consoles. And so I looked at this and I thought, yeah, I have to get this. This is, you know, it's history. So that's American Hero. Can't wait to check that one out. Hopefully that fits in sometime this year. I have so many plans for games, like, oh, I want to play this game and I want to play that game and I want to catch up on these. And I have some games I want to replay. One of the things that I want to do, I'm not necessarily saying in 2023, but in the future, is sit down and play through like all of the other FMV games that I have for PS4 that I've picked up over the years. Limited Run Games has been responsible for a bunch. Okay, and the second game that I got from Limited Run Game that arrived in December, this is not a numbered limited run game like American Hero is. This was a distribution title, but this is a game, and I don't even know if it's called Frogun or Frogun, because it's got a frog and it's a gun, so Frogun sounds right. But whenever I saw that title, I thought of Shogun, so I don't know which one it's supposed to be. But if you can see here on the cover of this, and maybe you'll be able to see some of the screenshots on the back, the best thing to do on this one is to just go look at a gameplay trailer for it. This game's graphics looks so PS1 to me. They evoke a little bit of like Mega Man Legends, the graphical style of the way the facial animation and textures are. It just, the gameplay is not like Mega Man Legends, but that's what it made me feel like. And I just immediately thought, I have to get this. The gameplay seems to be a little bit more platforming and shooting. You know, if you imagine like a Spyro the Dragon style game or whatever. So this may not necessarily be the you know, like my favorite retro looking game of all time. But, you know, for the reasons I mentioned before, the way that it looks and the feelings that it gave me, I was like, I have got to get this one. No doubt about it. So there's that. Alright, we've got 4 more games to show. So we've got a horror game here that I was trying to get for the longest time. Finally managed to end up picking it up. This is Madison. Now, I just thought that this was going to be another of these like Unity games, Unity horror games that somebody out there put together, and it was competent enough to be a full gaming experience. But I've heard a shit ton of people talking about this game and how much they really, really like it. It may still be kind of cheaply made, and it may look like a clunky Unity-based horror game, but it's supposed to be decent, and I definitely wanted to make sure that I picked it up. Has a camera mechanic. I imagine it's one of those where you have to take pictures in the dark to light up the environment around you and allow you to see anything scary that might be sitting in the darkness. So anyway, that's Madison. And then I got, this is the second to last game in this total overall series that I have to get to complete the series. I just need to start playing the games in this series. But this game is Lost Judgment. This is sort of a spin-off. It's a sequel to Judgment, which was a spin-off of the Yakuza games. I currently have in January the last of the Yakuza game series that I'm missing of what's come out at this point. I think there's 1 or 2 new games in the series coming out this year, but the Yakuza games are now spinning off into the Like a Dragon. They're just going to be called Like a Dragon. And the couple of games that are coming out in that series are more like period pieces. All the games in Yakuza and the 2 Judgment games are more modern time. And for years I've heard how the Yakuza games evoke a lot of Shenmue vibes for people. And Shenmue is one of my favorite games of all time. Sadly, I still haven't played Shenmue 2 and 3, despite owning them, but those are on the immense backlog. But Lost Judgment and Judgment are a little bit less over-the-top action and are a little bit more involved in like murder cases and investigating and detective work and whatnot. So when I saw the original Judgment, I was like, I really want to check that one out. And then when they got a sequel for it, I definitely had to add it to the collection as well. Like I said, the next pickups video for January, I'll show the only other Yakuza game that I didn't have. It's actually arriving today as of when I'm sitting down here and filming this, but excuse me, as of course it will not, be shown until I show the January pickups, which I've got to try to make sure I do it at the end of the month and not 2 weeks in. Okay, so the last 2 games to show are as follows. First of all, we have Stray. This is the iam8bit exclusive physical release. Not the exclusive physical release period, but iam8bit got this version that had a couple extra things, or at least for sure this sleeve. Now this is just a black cardboard slipcover. There's nothing on it. It's black on the back, there's nothing on the sides, there's just the Stray logo on the front. But it is still nice. But this is what the physical release that everybody, going at the store, going like Target or Amazon, you get one that looks like this. The physical from them also comes with this little Stray patch, which is really cool. And then I don't know if these are exclusive just to the iam8bit version, but there are like stickers. This is still sealed, so I can't see all the stickers, but the coloring on this is really nice. Let's see. Looks like these are just advertisements of some sort. So, nothing really big on those. Some QR codes for some cat food and whatnot. But I have already played this, and I really, really liked it. Just real briefly, I enjoyed the story of being a cat. I enjoyed being able to meow on command. I was thoroughly satisfied with the world design and the context-sensitive jump mechanic that they did. A lot of people were complaining that You know, Stray didn't allow you to just be a cat, walk around and jump. You had to be close to something that you could jump on, and then a button prompt had to pop up so that you could jump to it. I didn't have a problem with it because it worked. It works in terms of what the gameplay and the story is all about. That being said, I would love to see the development team of this just make a cat experience in an open world environment that didn't necessarily have to be futuristic, cyberpunk, you know, with robots and all that kind of stuff. Just a cat in a cat world, jumping whenever you want to, playing with stuff. They'll never do anything like that, because what would be fulfilling about a project like that? I suppose there's a chance that there could be a Stray 2. My only complaint with Stray was that the ending was somewhat open for a sequel, but it just didn't provide closure to me in terms of what happens at the very beginning of the game. So I suppose that might be a spoiler of a type. I'm not going to say exactly what happens, but if you play Stray and you see the opening events of it, you probably will know what it is that I'm talking about. So apologies for not maybe saying spoilers beforehand, but it's still a game very well worth checking out, and it does have some interesting twists and turns to the story. So I can't recommend it enough. I can see why it got awards or nominations for awards last year. I'm not so sure that I would hold it up against the big juggernauts like a God of War or Elden Ring, neither of which I have played. But Stray is such a experience of its own and such a bite-sized little thing. I don't really know why it gets paired up against some of those other kinds of games. But anyway, that's not to take anything away from Stray. It's really, really good. All right, here's the big game of the month that I got. This is Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Now, if you've watched my videos, you understand. But if you've never watched any of my videos, this is the first time looking at anything that I've done. You must know and you must understand that Final Fantasy VII, the original game, is my favorite game of all time. Excuse me. I played it not at release, but within the first year or so that it came out in the 90s. I was immediately smitten with the characters, with the story, with the world, the music, the nonsense of Japanese role-playing games. I loved everything about Final Fantasy VII. I was definitely one of those people who was disappointed when, you know, it was left behind. There was an 8, and there was a 9, and there was 10, and, you know, it just kept going and going and going. For years, people were saying, you know, a remake or, you know, something. Final Fantasy X got a direct sequel. Final Fantasy XIII got 2 direct sequels. A lot of people love 10. A lot of people just don't care for 13. Why did those get multiples and Final Fantasy VII didn't? And I was one of those people who was like, I would just love to see something in relation to Final Fantasy VII. And then, you know, nearly 10 years, I think, after Final Fantasy VII came out in 97, we got what was referred to as the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. You got Crisis Core for the PSP, a prequel. We got Advent Children, a sequel movie. We got Ever Crisis. No. I can't remember now. I can't remember the name of the one. Ever Crisis is a newer thing. There was a Turks-related mobile game. There was Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. The PS2 Vincent Valentine story game. We got a whole bunch of stuff. And the movie, Advent Children, was something that I immediately bought and watched and enjoyed. There's a Cerberus I bought, but I wasn't very impressed with that. I don't think a lot of people were. the mobile game didn't do anything for me. Crisis Core seemed like the most promising thing. It was a prequel. It was going to explain stuff about Zack, and Zack and Cloud and Sephiroth as the ones who are on the cover. And it was on the PSP, a handheld I never had. Handhelds I've discovered at this point in my life, just not something that I care about. And so it was lost to time for someone like me. Like, it wasn't even digitally released anywhere that I'm aware of. It was locked to the PSP until like 6 months ago, when the 25-year anniversary celebration for Final Fantasy VII was announced, and one of the projects that was announced in it was this. And then, like, in December, this came out. And I just got done beating this thing like 15 minutes before I sat down for this. So I'm not going to say anything more about anything more in depth about this, but I am going to say that I really like this, and I also had my issues with it. But I plan on doing a video in the very near future talking about this game, how it works into the storyline, how it works into the storyline for me, what it means to me as somebody who really loves Final Fantasy VII and all the characters that are in that game. I can just tell you this one thing about my feelings for Zack, just knowing of what of how he's brought into and what part he has in Final Fantasy VII, the original game. I was never a fan of Zack. I just didn't care about him. He felt like a throwaway character, a plot device, and I just didn't really care about him. He didn't have a place in the game world. What am I trying to say? The view that I have of Final Fantasy VII and its story and its characters, Zack didn't fit into it. Yes, he's a part of the story. He's an important part of the story in a lot of ways. But playing Final Fantasy VII and only Final Fantasy VII, he just doesn't fit into it. This, I thought, well, this is going to give me a chance to fill in some blanks and understand some parts of the story better. And that's what I will talk about more in that other video that I do. That's the end of this video. Probably went a little bit longer than I wanted to. What a shock. The next video that I'm going to do is going to be talking about the games that I played and the games that I beat in 2022. I think that's the best way for me to sort of talk about games that I've played after I've played them, except for in the cases of special circumstances like this. But that'll be the next thing that I do, going over the games I beat and the games that I at least started and messed around with during the year. So that'll be the next video that comes up. Thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you in that next one.